Here we go. Focus in. Let's do it. Sip of coffee. So I spent thousands of dollars on my first studio. We had the fancy equipment. We had the perfect logo, the perfect business cards. Everything was beautiful, smooth like silk. 6 months later, I was nearly broke and ready to go back to my day job with my tail between my legs. That failure taught me 3 very important lessons that ended up completely changing my music career. And if you're trying to make a living from music, these lessons could save you years of frustration and a whole lot of money. So I've been making my living from music for over 20 years now, creating songs, scores, and sounds for some of the biggest brands in the world, and teaching thousands of other musicians how to do the same. I've worked with every major brand under the sun on 3 different continents. But my first attempt at building my music career, it was a complete disaster. See, I nearly fell into this business by accident. A friend of mine commissioned me to create some music for a Pontiac Aztek campaign. I spent a few hours in the evening creating the music. A few weeks later, I got the check. And I nearly fell out of my cubicle at my day job. Is this what they're paying musicians for original music? When I cooled down, I realized, wait a minute. Brands do have the money. They do need the creative content. Who else would do this if not freelance musicians? That big check instantly evaporated my humility, my reasoning. I quit my day job almost immediately. I told everyone I am now going to be a composer for moving media for the biggest brands in the world, and then proceeded to make every mistake that you could possibly make. So today I'm going to share with you these expensive mistakes in the hope that you will learn from me and you don't have to learn them the hard way like I did. Mistake number 1, I over-prepared in total isolation. The moment I learned about the world of music and brands and how all these musicians that I've never heard of are actually making a full-time living from it, I went into full preparation mode. I'm all in. I immediately proceeded to spend thousands of dollars on designing my business cards with a fancy designer, with a fancy design degree from a fancy design school. I remember sitting there at Starbucks and looking at the drafts and the beautiful PDF presentations of this logo. I was in business, right? I was preparing, I was being diligent, I was making my brand look beautiful. It's all necessary part of the process, right? Then, of course, once we had the logo, we had to build a website. And 20 years ago, it wasn't so easy to build websites. So I had to spend a few more thousands of dollars to build this website, go back and forth with the website designer, with the programmer, to make sure every pixel was perfect. Then my business partner found a studio space on the outskirts of town. Of course, we began installing hardwood floors. We built a self-contained control room in this room with a high ceiling, and we actually put a lounge on top of the control room. You know, the absolute essential necessary stuff required by this industry. Everything acoustically treated, of course, everything wired to perfection, everything great, right? Of course, we already had a multi-year lease signed on the place, and I proceeded to take a part of my day job paycheck and put it toward paying for this studio. I'm a creative entrepreneur. I'm gonna make a splash in the world of music and brands. But here's the problem, folks. I was working in complete delusion, in complete separation from the industry, in complete isolation. The logo, the branding, the website, the beautiful studio, the only person I had to convince was myself. Not the client, not the marketplace, not the people who are actually going to pay me. Nope. I convinced myself that all of this was absolutely necessary. It was a requirement in order for me to announce myself into the world of music and brands. Folks, the most dangerous thing that you could do is work in complete isolation. Isolation from reality, isolation from the real world, isolation from the marketplace. Brothers and sisters, that is a very dangerous place to be. Right in here and only in here. See, when you start working in complete isolation, separated from the wisdom and the feedback from the marketplace, you start believing in your own assumptions. You start taking what isn't necessarily true to be very, very true and very, very important. I assumed that I absolutely needed fancy business cards to impress my future clients. I assumed that having the most expensive looking studio was absolutely necessary for them to trust me. I assumed that I needed a completely perfect, fancy website in order for anyone to even talk to me. Now, folks, guess how many people visited our studio? I can count them on this hand. And they weren't even people from the industry. Do you know why? Because I didn't even realize that the outskirts of town is not the place where the ad industry or anyone from brands is actually going to go to visit us. They're not going to go all the way to the outskirts of town to grace us with their presence. Here I was building a studio, competing with multi-million-dollar studios downtown Toronto where brands were actually going. And nothing about building a studio on the outskirts of town was going to change the process that has been happening in the marketplace for decades. But I didn't know that because I was working in complete isolation. An entire year building a studio, building business cards and branding, building a website. I could have been out there actually having coffees with the marketplace, with creative directors at ad agencies, with music producers at music houses, with chief marketing officers at brands. I was already ready. I had the gift of gab. I could invite them to lunch. I could say, what are the things you're struggling with? What kind of needs do you have as far as moving media goes? How many pieces, original music pieces, do you do a year? What's your average budget? These sound like pretty good questions, right? And the answers to these questions would have made me realize that all the stuff I did that I thought was necessary, that cost me thousands of dollars and over a year of work, was absolutely unnecessary in order for me to sell myself to the marketplace and start making thousands of dollars like I did with that first paycheck for that Pontiac Aztek campaign, for which I did not prepare whatsoever. I was just in the right place talking to the right person. The person knew that I made music, and they commissioned me to create music for this campaign. And of course, in my over-perfecting analysis paralysis mind, I couldn't just repeat that process. For instance, meet with another person in another agency working on another project. Nope, I had to go out there and build a studio on the outskirts of town. A studio that almost nobody would see. A plastic business card, really fancy one, that I still have boxes of because I didn't manage to hand them out to anyone. And a website that I spent thousands of dollars on, which I'm not even sure anybody saw. Now, having learned this the hard way, here's what I recommend to the students in our academy. I asked them to write a love letter. Declare your intention to your inner circle, to your family, to your friends, about wanting to be a remarkable craftsperson who wants to be commissioned to create beautiful and irresistible songs, scores, and sounds for those who are willing and able to pay for world-class craft. This is your first step. Not building a studio for a year, not building a website for half a year, not spending all your money and time worrying about your logo or your business cards. Start with the low-hanging fruit. Declare your intention about what it is that you want to do to your closest circle. And your only ask from the people that care and love you already is, do you know anyone who's in a position to hire a creative craftsperson in the creation of a campaign for a big brand and one of their campaigns? That's it. Start with a love letter. A simple email, a simple message. Make it inspiring. Tell them your story. Tell them you finally decided to pursue your dream. Feel free to share some of your best work. But do not work in isolation. Develop as soon as possible contact with another real human that may lead you to another real human that will then give you feedback, that will then have an actual conversation with you. A conversation which will tell you exactly what they need. Instead of assuming when you're sitting there all by yourself in your fancy studio with your fancy business card, assuming that you already know what the marketplace wants. This is just fear. You're afraid to showcase yourself. You're afraid to get out there. Uncle Z hereby gives you permission to stop being afraid. Of course, you may have to polish your music composition skills. Of course, you may have to polish your music production. This is what we're here for. In our academy, we allow musicians like you to know where they stand. Is your music actually good enough, or do you need to work a few weeks in a very focused way on a very specific part of composing music for media? Is your portfolio ready? Does it give goosebumps? If it doesn't give goosebumps, let's take a look at it. Let's make it give goosebumps. Let's take a look at your website. Does it look like a flea market with 89 links to all your APs that nobody cares about? Or does it have a focused reel that is short, that is compelling, that will give me goosebumps instantly? I hear magic coming out of the speakers. You're responsible for creating it. Maybe it'd be a good idea for me to contact you. You see how simple this is, but we overthink it. Why the hell would I care about somebody's visual logo when I'm dealing with a musician? Why would I care about what kind of gear you have in your studio when you're on the other side of the ocean? I can send an email to you asking you for some music. Your $5,000 leather couch doesn't do anything for me. I cannot use it. I cannot actually sit on it. It solves zero problems for me, and therefore it is irrelevant. Is spending $5,000 on anything that's not going to get me closer to the marketplace and the real needs of this marketplace, is that money well spent? Man, this sounds obvious to me now, but it's amazing to me how blind I was and how many blind musicians that I deal with that completely lack perspective. I see this every day. I don't want you to make the same mistakes as I did. That's why I'm making this video. This leads us nicely to mistake number 2. The underlying problem was I assumed I knew. This is a strange kind of brew, including 2 ingredients: arrogance and fear. I didn't want to betray myself as an amateur, but it seems that's exactly what I did. In my excitement about discovering this hidden world where I could finally make music my full-time career, once I spent a year building the studio, the website, and the fancy business cards, I then proceeded to contact all the wrong people. I was reaching out directly to ad agencies, thinking that it's the ad agency that's actually going to commission me as a freelance composer. Folks, it would have taken one coffee with anybody from the ad agency to let me know that ad agencies don't actually deal with the individual composers. So I was sending all these emails that screamed, I have no idea how this industry actually works. It must have been very obvious to them that I was new to the industry. And you know what's crazy? I was trying to look so professional that it actually made me look the opposite. Before I even showed them my reel, my website, the reel and the website, your whole positioning should be built as an answer to the questions, the problems, and the struggles that the marketplace has, because that's who's going to be paying you to solve these things. Now, folks, I know it's not easy to get someone from the industry out for a coffee, but this is precisely why we exist. So musicians like you can perfect their showcase, not in isolation, not by asking their grandma, who's gonna say, Johnny, that's great, but by getting cold, objective, and constructive feedback on how to perfect your showcase, being able to be vulnerable with people who are actually in the industry before you go into the industry. That's what a role of a mentor is. You learn from the pros before you approach the pros. Look, there's absolutely no shame in being new. Every one of us started with 0 spots on our reel, with no idea what we're doing, clearly evidenced by my stories in this video. The only shame is in pretending that you're not new when you are, and going out there without having enough humility to ask questions instead of trying to give answers. The most seasoned pros ask questions. They don't declare, they ask questions, okay? They let their potential client do the talking, because it is they who need to do the talking. You are going to solve the problems. They're going to tell you what the problems are and how they want the problem solved. I know it sounds simple, but it's absolutely crazy how the more amateur you are, the more tempted you are to make yourself look pro. But you only end up making yourself look more like an amateur. Which leads us to mistake number 3. I didn't take the time to learn how to sell myself. I can already hear you musicians, you creative people saying, but Tommy, we're not salespeople. I'm not a salesperson. I'm never going to be a salesperson. I hate sales. Let me tell you something. You are a salesperson. To your wife, to your kids, to your boss, to a stranger you're trying to persuade to vote for this person or that person. You are in sales, whether you think you are or whether you think you're not. Facts are not concerned with your feelings. You are in sales. The more you learn the art of selling yourself as a remarkable craftsperson, the better off you will be. This is a choice that you'll have to keep coming back to. Even once your career takes off and you get comfortable, there'll be moments when you're tempted to say, I have now made it. I am now a remarkable craftsperson. People should be coming to me. Wrong. As long as you are a craftsperson, you will have to learn and continue learning and practicing the art of selling you and your craft. And here is the good news. You're not selling vacuum cleaners or used cars. That's not what selling creativity is about. You need to remix what you think about selling in your mind. You see, in our business, selling doesn't mean that you show up with PowerPoints and bullet points of what it is that you're doing. There's no pie charts. There's no brochures. It just means that you present yourself as you are, a cool, inspiring musician whose passion and skill is self-evident. Folks, you gotta understand that you're not actually selling anything. Just show your music. Let the music do the talking. If you did your homework about the industry and you spent thousands of hours polishing your craft, the music is gonna do all the talking for you. It will sell itself. It will seem like strange magic to other people, but to you, it will be the natural outcome of your talent, honed by thousands of hours. You see, it's not about trying to convince anyone about you as a craftsperson, actually understanding what it is that the marketplace needs. The more you do that, the more self-evident it becomes that you're able to create the kind of music that solves problems, that fits the narrative, that fits the needs of the marketplace. I mean, can you just imagine if you don't have that? There's no amount of persuasion or eloquence that you could use to convince anyone of anything. So take the pressure off yourself. Spend the energy not trying to convince someone, but instead to really master the art of composing original songs, scores, and sounds in short formats for moving media, for big brands, their campaigns, commercials, and content. And once you get confident as a craftsperson in this particular niche, that is when you bring it into the marketplace. And by then you will do it confidently with a natural charm. You're not gonna sell your magic tricks like, this magic trick is very, very great because of reason 1 and reason 2 and reason 3. Like, you're just gonna do your magic trick. I mean, it sounds kind of ridiculous, right? But when I talk to musicians, this is how they think they need to sell themselves. If your music is great, you don't have to do the talking. If the music hits and it gives goosebumps and it answers the creative problem, you can stay quiet. Good news, right? No amount of talking, no matter how clever, will make up for poor craft. On the other hand, no amount of world-class craft is worth a damn if it stays on your hard drive, if it stays in your basement, if you don't actually show it to the people who are willing and able to pay for it. Does that make sense? So folks, summing it all up, here are the mistakes I made, here's what I learned, and here's what actually works. Number 1, do not work in isolation. Do not stay here. Get connected with the marketplace early. Test your assumptions before you spend thousands of dollars thinking that your assumptions are reality. Number 2, assume you know nothing. Find mentors. Find those who are already in the business. Learn from them. Follow those who are ahead of you on the path. Don't ask your grandma, ask a guide who's actually in the game. And number 3, learn that selling yourself is just about being authentically passionate. Authentically passionate about music on one hand, and artistically proficient at solving creative problems on the other hand. Passion, proficiency, that's what gives you confidence to actually approach the marketplace and have people resonate with you and your work. These are the 3 lessons that completely transformed my work. This is what allowed me to build a 20+ year career in this business. If you want to learn more about how this industry actually works, we have a free comprehensive training that breaks down exactly how brands get their music and how you can become a part of the process. The link to the free training is below. I'm Tommy Z. I'll see you in the next video.